So here with us today is David Gates, visiting writer. First question.
So soon?
Yes.
Gee, all right, okay. All right, far away.
Far away. How did you become a writer?
How did I become a writer? That's such a long story. I
That's
hope
why
there's
it's the
plenty
first
of
question.
film
There's
in this
plenty
thing.
of time.
I did not intend to be a writer. You know, like everybody else, I wrote some little things in high school and thought it was, hot stuff. But then to fast forward a few years, I decided I'd be an academic, so I went to a PhD program at the University of Connecticut. And I was going to be a specialist in Samuel Beckett and be teaching, stuff like that. My committee didn't like my dissertation that much. I discovered there were no jobs, so I just kind of bailed on that. And at the time, I was married to Ann Beattie, who was becoming a pretty famous writer at the time we were married. But it still never occurred to me that I would write. And then after our marriage broke up, I just found myself, we were living in Connecticut. I was riding the commuter train into New York City to do a kind of PR job at Newsweek. And I just found myself writing one day. And after a month, I had maybe what felt like the first, say, of 5 chunks of a novel. And I just thought, I'm going to take this thing seriously. That's what I'm going to do with my life. And moved into a tiny little apartment in New York City and set myself very seriously to doing this thing. Finished that novel in a year. And thank God it was never published because it was dreadful. And then it took me really 11 years from the time I began seriously writing to get anything published. I didn't go to an MFA program, unlike most of the writers I know. And I just sort of muddled through, and finally I hit something that was right.
Great. So I know you detailed a little bit about this earlier, but how was your Pulitzer experience?
It was barely an experience. I found out one day I had been on the short list and actually didn't get it. So, virtually nothing happened. There was no money, there was no ceremony. Eventually there was a sticker on the front of the book saying I was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize, but that's the extent of the experience it was.
Yeah. You've also been recognized on a variety of different levels with journals such as Go, Grand Street, the Paris Review, the New Yorker, and Esquire magazine. What recommendations do you have for students who are looking to get published?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
It's a hard question.
It was relatively easy for me because I was a staff writer at Newsweek at the time, so people would know my name and they would ask me to do stuff. I think the best way to do it is just to publish at first pretty much any place you can, be it an online place or a small magazine or a small newspaper, whatever you can do just to get some clips to show to people at better places. Here's the kind of stuff I've been doing. It's probably a good idea to have a project in mind that you want to be doing rather than just say, here are my wonderful clips and, now give me an assignment. If you've got something really specific to pitch them, I think that's a real move.
Do you have a favorite journal?
God, that's a really good question. I don't read very many of them. I read the New Yorker pretty regularly. Paris Review I read pretty regularly. I read Book Forum a lot, but that's of course only reviews. And most of them I have to admit I don't really read that much. I don't have time to do it.
Yeah. So what inspires you?
What inspires me? Well, you know what really inspires me? I'm teaching at the low residency program at Bennington College, MFA program. And once a year, we meet twice a year, but once a year it becomes your turn if you're a teacher to get up and be a reader, do a reading in front of everybody. And that inspires me more than anything to have something new to read to them rather than trot out some old thing that you wrote years ago, which is really embarrassing and suggests that you're a slug and you're not productive. So it's, embarrassment more than anything else inspires me.
Okay.
Or just the feeling that it's really been too long since you finished anything. And you used to be a writer, and what happened to you? So it's not that I walk around like Wordsworth and suddenly see a field of daffodils. Where's my pen? No, it's not like that. I mean, I sit down and try to think of something, be it like a little bit of, somebody saying something, or some visual image that's for some reason stuck with me, and just try to build something out of that.
So you are also a professor. How did you go about doing that, becoming a teacher?
Well, I was invited.
Okay.
That's one positive thing, I guess, that comes out of the Pulitzer and getting good reviews for a first novel, is that somebody might ask you to go and teach. So that happened with the New School's MFA program quite a long time ago. And then same thing happened with Bennington. They invited me to come up and do a reading there and sit in on some stuff. And I slowly began to realize that was an audition. So, yeah, it's like that.
So what is your curriculum like?
Well, mostly I do workshops, which is kind of a curriculum-free thing. People just bring manuscripts in and we talk about them. At the New School, about half the time in that MFA program, I was doing a literature course rather than a workshop. So I would assign, basically stuff I liked and stuff that I'd learned from. So typically I would assign a Jane Austen novel, the Samuel Beckett trilogy of novels, stories by Raymond Carver, Hemingway, Laurie Moore often, Amy Hempel quite often. And then, newer stuff. I had really good luck teaching The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Diaz. Just a few things like that, things that Donald Barthelme stories I would teach. So I was trying to show them, kind of a wide variety of fictional approaches, but also things that they could learn. Technical, I hate to say tricks because that's a demeaning word, but for example, there's a story by John Cheever called The Sorrows of Gin, which has these really ingenious ways of moving the story forward, almost like jump cuts. And you don't realize that until you read the story a few times, how radical he's being at cutting out of a scene when that scene has done its work. But that's a piece that if you can show students, what he's doing and what, if he were a worse writer, he might have included in that piece, it kind of, opens eyes to those possibilities.
Sure. So why fiction?
Why fiction? It's what I like best to read. And it's, it's more, you're a nonfiction writer. I hate to say this to you, but it's just more glamorous. Not as glamorous as being a poet, but I can't manage that. So, I can hit that little in-between glamour zone where it's pretty glamorous.
Sure. So do you have any last words or recommendations that you'd like to say to students here?
I don't. Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate.
Bob Dylan says, "Keep a clean nose, watch the plain clothes."
I like that.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah, words to live by.
There you go. All right, well, David Gates, thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy.